make a water gun squirt, you have to pull the trigger. The harder you pull the trigger, the harder the water comes out. This is because fluid resists flow. Sir Isaac Newton defined viscosity as the resistance which arises from the lack of slipperiness of the parts of the liquid, other things being equal, is proportional to the velocity with which the parts of the liquid are separated from one another. Sir Isaac Newton was an English physicist and mathematician. He was born in Lincolnshire, England, and he was one of the most influential scientists of all time. The word viscosity came from the Latin term viscum, which means mistletoe. There was a glue made out of mistletoe berries called birdlime, which was used to catch birds. Fluid viscosity is a measure of a fluid's resistance to deformation by shear stress or tensile stress. A fluid with high viscosity flows much slower than one with low viscosity. It's basically the thickness of a fluid. For example, honey has a higher viscosity than water. Shear stress is a measure of the force of friction from a fluid acting on a body in the path of the fluid. You can measure shear stress with this formula. Tensile stress is when the length of a material tends to increase in tensile direction. Viscosity is measured in centistokes. Sable universal seconds is the amount of seconds needed for 60 milliliters of fluid to pass through. For example, beer has 1.8 centistokes and 32 Sable universal seconds. Viscosity can be measured with many different types of viscometers and rheometers. Paint industries usually use a Zahn cup to measure the efflux time for customers. The efflux time can then be converted to centistokes. They also use a Stormer viscometer. There are also other instruments such as the Ford viscosity cup and the acoustic rheometer. A Ford viscosity cup measures the rate of flow of a liquid. An acoustic rheometer measures volume viscosity. Newton is the reason there are so many instruments for measuring viscosity. A sphere falling in a viscous fluid reaches terminal velocity when the total force is 0. An ideal or inviscid fluid is a fluid with no resistance to shear stress. In the real world, zero viscosity is only seen at very low temperatures. A mobile liquid is any fluid with a viscosity less than that of water. A viscous fluid is any fluid with a viscosity higher than that of water. When the viscosity is really high, like in pitch, the fluid would seem solid by just looking at or touching it. Newtonian fluids' viscosity does not change. Fluids like water, gasoline, and alcohol are Newtonian fluids. Most viscosity depends on temperature, even for Newtonian fluids. A non-Newtonian fluid is a fluid whose flow cannot be described by a single value of viscosity. Ketchup, yogurt, blood, and mud are all some examples of non-Newtonian fluids. There are 5 different types of non-Newtonian fluids. The first is shear thickening liquid, also known as a dilatant, which the viscosity increases with the rate of shear stress. An example of a shear thickening liquid would be oobleck, a mix of cornstarch and water. The second type of non-Newtonian fluids is a shear thinning liquid, also known as pseudoplastic, which the viscosity decreases with the rate of shear stress. Examples of shear thinning liquids are ketchup, blood, and whipped cream. These are commonly mistaken as thixotropic. The third type of a non-Newtonian fluid are thixotropic liquids. They become less viscous over time when shaken. An example would be semen. The third type of non-Newtonian fluids are rheopectic liquids. They become more viscous when shaken. An example would be printer inks. They are the less common of the non-Newtonian fluids. The fifth and the last type of non-Newtonian fluids are Bingham plastics. They're solid at low stresses but viscous at high stress. An example would be mayonnaise. A reed is a non-molten solid that deforms by viscous flow. Almost all rocks can act as reeds under certain temperatures and conditions.
What?